Skyrim was an exceptional game on release, but only now can I consider it just about finished, and maybe ease up on the endless tweaking and modding. There is more of everything a year and a half later. A veritable army of talented modders have provided us with thousands of pick-and-mix additions to enrich or spoil Skyrim. Dawngaurd and Dragonborn undoubtedly enrich the game, at least they add more game perhaps, rather than enrich the existing game, but I'll get to those later in the video. The modding community deserves whatever meager spotlight I can here offer. A link to each mod, in the order mentioned, resides in the description. Interesting NPCs is undoubtedly the single mod I cannot be without. The only negative thing that could be said of it is that by contrast it renders Bethesda's default NPCs even more two-dimensional. 4 writers and 60 voice actors enliven in excess of 130 detailed characters scattered throughout Skyrim, 20 of whom can be followers, and 8 of these will offer additional dialogue on many locations and quests. And the mod carries its own 28 associated quests, staggering in size and quality, and an ever-expanding work, by itself lending players reason enough to rediscover Skyrim anew. INPC and perhaps SkyUI are the baseline, your basic starter mod pack that will change your experience considerably and for the better. SkyUI overhauls and upgrades the rather dodgy existing user interface, further improved by better dialogue controls that relieves the annoyance of the clashing dual control method of arrow keys and cursor for dialogue options, and also by Immersive HUD that automatically hides parts of the display when not in use and allows players to toggle the compass on and off. It's amazing how much more I see when studying the game screen when the compass is off, rather than judging distances based on the opacity of compass map symbols. Categorised Favorites menu, a self-explanatory mod that categorises your favourites menu, is also recommended. For those wondering where the Skyrim Civil War actually happens, the plains are brought believably to life, or rather flooded by scenes of death, by the mod Immersive Patrols, in which various factions not only patrol in groups and fight, but then make moves to control nearby fortresses and outposts. War Zones is perhaps the more popular, but I found it a bit absurd and unstable. You know what's really important? Hair! Greatly improved by Apachii. And of course, present are the obligatory beauty and nudity mods, my favourite of which is Dimonized UNP, used in conjunction with Xenius character enhancement, and more recently with SG texture renewal. Numerous new armour types are available, you can pick and choose, but I've simply gone with the Immersive Armours pack of the most lore-friendly and best armours, because I don't find new armours all that exciting, or weapons really, for which Jaysus Swords, another considerably sized pack, kind of covers your needs. Some useful mechanical tweaks are offered by Deathless Sprint and Jump, which doesn't exactly work as hoped, but is a functional mod that allows you to jump while holding the sprint key. No NPC Greetings is essential if you find characters blurting their innermost ambitions to you on sight rather jarring, which you should, there's not a human response. Move it, damn it! Helps solve the irritating issue of NPCs getting in your way, although is an acceptable alternative. And now you can smash locks with particular blunt weapons. Perhaps slightly unwieldy and unbalancing, but I won't do without it. Ultimate Follower Overhaul does its very best to allow you to recruit more than just one companion. This can at times get completely screwy if you're not careful, so save often, but that probably goes for most mods. With that in mind, download and refer to Boss to perfect your mod load order to minimize crashing. Truly balanced destruction magic, mid-S magic, and forgotten magic, the latter perhaps the roughest and most unbalanced, empowers the mage from the unscaling whimpery of default Skyrim. The cold-based survival mod Frostfall, in which the player can freeze to death in the colder reaches of Skyrim, always bugged me because not only, when I played at least, was nothing vulnerable to freezing except me, but at no stage throughout the game is the player ever unable to conjure fire, which produces heat, presumably, and light, you'd have thought. Thank goodness for Make Inferno, complemented by Ultimate HD fire effects and Burn Freeze shock effects, which together make spells feel generally more badass. Fire will now produce light and actually chars and burns things. Things don't burn down, but you can spray fire and turn around and run as if they do. Although beware fire traps in dungeons, as these will cause major slowdowns by spawning too many light sources to process. I have installed a pile of mods that add various quests, but the only one I'm aware that I've actually played through is Moonpath to Elsewhere, which was an enjoyable romp with some well voice-acted Khajiit. Naturally, the various unofficial patches are invaluable, although do pay attention to Boss's load order suggestion. And, a rather big one, I'm using Skyrim Redone, a massive overhaul, mostly developing the skill trees, but tweaks numerous bits and bobs. Deadly dragons and crafting overhauls are also useful. New books are available and those from past games, disabled magic kill cams, goodness those were annoying, and the main aesthetic mods I use are Water, Project Reality, and Bethesda's own high-res texture pack, along with Saturation Boost. Okay, I've mentioned about a quarter of the mods I'm using. I won't try to deny that ensuring and maintaining stability is some effort, but it is assuredly worth it if you have the time to sink into such an endeavour. There isn't all that much I can say about Hearthfire, having not explored it properly. It's a lore-friendly house-building mod with children. Do consider Build Your Own Home or Legend of the Eagle's Nest before you commit to it. Dawngaurd is unfortunate in that public tolerance of vampires have been rather strained by Twilight. The by now beaten to death but here relatively lore-friendly plot about the feud between vampires and their hunters fortunately ventures out with its trite little box to explore the backstory of some of Skyrim's ancient inhabitants, the reading of Elder Scrolls, the nature of soul-catching, and tries to add interest by introducing morally ambiguous characters. These are, unfortunately, as ever, blighted by Bethesda's mediocre typecast writing that prevents them from springing to life. Still, the fairly lengthy new questline with additional side missions leads your character on a journey across existing and new exotic locations within Skyrim and beyond. The stakes are high, it's well integrated into the existing world, and with the new items, enemies, and skill trees of lycanthropy and vampirism, if that's your bag, Twilight destroyed it for me like Jurassic Park 3 killed my interest in dinosaurs, there is enough content here to warrant, at least, buying it during a Steam sale. It doesn't quite make itself essential to the Skyrim experience, but it's close and recommended, even though it doesn't make me feel strongly enough about it to say much more than that. Dragonborn, by dint of adding a landmass and plumbing the history of Dragonborns, feels like a more substantial affair, although it seems to matter not at all to the Skyrim mainland. The main questline feels somewhat shorter, made up for entirely by the world-building mastery seen in Solstheim. About 40 detailed locations exist, many of them with their own little story as within Skyrim, many of them harking back to Morrowind, with a few settlements and groups, comprising about 100 new NPCs, issuing quests that you'll find you'll pick up fairly fluidly, leading you nicely around the island. The north of the island is a winter wonderland, inhabited by an ancient tribe of Nords, the Ashlands of the south home to the Dark Elves of Ravenrock. The east coast commands a view of the desolate Vardenfell, destroyed by the eruption, ruined stumps of trees on Solstheim blasted by the shockwave, except where Telvanni mushroom buildings have sprung from the ground. NPC writing is still cursory, many quest-related dialogues with single-choice responses, as opposed to having two choices with the same outcome. Even the pretense of choice is here abandoned. Although I enjoyed Neloth's reasonably intelligent brand of practical narcissism, a number of side quests provided are considerable and interesting. I'm not sure why Solstheim cannot simply appear on the main Skyrim map, so unfortunately travelling there means going first to a transfer point, which will limit the number of later visits to the island. So although there is a nice house available there, it isn't really practical as a base of operations. The highlight though of this DLC for me are the Apocrypha levels, but I'll let you discover those for yourself.